G'day, it's Dr. Justin Coulson here. Over the weekend, there's been devastating news that you have almost certainly heard about coming out of Bondi, and just horrific, tragic sort of stuff. I'm going to be addressing that tomorrow on the podcast. We have a sponsored podcast today that has to go on as per our typical planning program. But I just wanted to highlight today's podcast, as per normal. Tomorrow, we'll address how to talk to the kids about this awful, tragic situation. Okay, so on with the podcast.
It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Millennial parents are different to GenX parents. I've said it. I've made the call. The world is different in 2024 to how it was back in the 90s when we started our parenting journey. Kylie, you and I were born in the 70s. We're Gen Xers.
That sounds so old.
As I said it, I thought, oh my goodness, I feel like I just choked a little bit.
You might as well said we were born in the 50s. Like, it feels that old.
No, we definitely weren't. But you know what? We're closer to 2050 than we are to like 1980. That's or 1990 even. But I digress. We've been watching our millennial daughter and her husband raise their baby, who's a little over 6 months old now, and they're doing it differently. They're, like, Gen X parenting, totally different to millennial parenting. That's what we're talking about today. A bunch of differences, how it's changed.
The first obvious change is the digital infusion.
Yeah, just social media, screens.
It's literally taken over our lives.
I just think about it from there's the whole sharing, right? So there's gender reveals, there's Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. There's family chats. Like back in the 1990s, the idea of a family chat, it didn't exist, right?
A little while ago, I found a random box that clearly hadn't been unpacked. And as I was going through it, I found some old letters. And when
Sorry, pause. For those of you who are younger, letters, they're these things that we used to use.
Snail mail.
In the old days, I don't even know if the new generation would know what snail mail is. I mean, anyway, sorry, go on.
And inside those letters were some old photos that I had sent of the children to their grandparents when they were babies.
What? So you mean like you found an iPad in the box and there was some photos on there?
You're hilarious. No, once upon a time, you had a film camera.
I know.
And you didn't even know what was on that film. And you would go and get this lucky dip of photos that may or may not have worked.
How many photographs do you reckon have been taken of our granddaughter compared to how many photos were taken of our first daughter? Like, we literally would take some photos. Digital photography existed in the late 90s when she was born, but we took a handful of photos and then we would email them, or we would get them printed and send them to family in envelopes via the post, right? I mean, that's one of the huge differences with this digital infusion. Family group chats.
The ability to share your life with other people, regardless of where they live around the world.
Friction-free.
That's huge.
The other thing that I would say with the digital infusion, now that you've brought that up, is just this issue of, like, when we didn't know what to do, we just didn't know what to do. And we would make an appointment with the doctor or a child health nurse, or we would make a phone call to mum or grandma and we would have a chat about them. Whereas today, we've gone from literally no advice to Chat GPT, for crying out loud.
In so many ways, it's actually information overload. If I wanted to find something out as a young mum, like you said, you'd talk to someone, or I'd go to the library and pick up a book.
Borrow a book from the library, yeah.
But now I open up my feed and clearly Facebook knows that I'm a grandparent because all my feed is how to entertain a 6-month-old, right. How to feed a 6-month-old. Like, regardless of whether I want that information, it is there. And the pressure that young parents are feeling as they watch everybody doing life seemingly so much better than them.
Yeah, so I guess the digital infusion also comes with some downsides, but regardless, that is a huge difference for millennials who are parents today versus what we were going through when we had our children back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The second idea for me, when I'm looking at kids today, is just content on demand. Do you remember when the kids' favourite TV show would come on?
You mean the Wiggles?
Well, that in Play School. I mean, but Bluey didn't exist back then, right? There was no such thing as Bluey.
Sesame Street.
The Wiggles were brand new when we had our first baby.
We went to the concert.
Now that's making me feel okay. Let's move on. I don't like that feeling.
Are there actually any original Wiggles left?
No, I don't know. I mean, we're a little bit out of that demographic now. But the point is, 9 o'clock in the morning, you had to be sitting in front of the TV so that you could catch Play School. And if you missed it, too bad, so sad. You have to wait till tomorrow. There was no such thing as content on demand.
Time programming.
Time programming. That sounds so strange. What is that?
At the time, it was probably really, really tricky to live through. But as I look at what our kids are living through now, I miss timed programming.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it provided a structure and it meant that the kids knew, well, this is my TV time. Like the conversation about how much screen time is too much. I know that people have wrestled with the whole screen time question for years and years and years, but it was so much easier to say, well, there's a natural conclusion to this right now. We don't have autoplay. We don't have a screen in your hand that you can dial up something new to watch because you're bored with this thing. It was like, well, Play School goes from 9 till 9:30, and there is a natural conclusion to this, so we are going to go and do other things when Play School is over. Whereas now you can sit down and watch. I know Bluey only goes for about 7 minutes, but you can watch approximately 100 episodes of Bluey because they're all there. It's all that content on demand. Big contrast. You know what else? Just maybe extending that a fraction. The other thing that stands out to me around that is our entertainment, or our kids' entertainment, if they were born 20, 25 years ago, was with each other, and it was outside.
I remember when our eldest was 3, she used to walk 2 houses down the street to her friend's place.
Yes.
Her neighbour at 3 years of age used to call her the neighbourhood events coordinator.
Right.
Because as a 3-year-old, she's like, okay, well, I'm going to come play with you today at your house, but then tomorrow you can come to my house, and then the next day I'll come back to your house. Like, she had it all planned out. But we don't see that now. Like, that would be considered very strange.
I'm really grateful.
Behaviour.
I'm really grateful where we live on the Sunshine Coast. We do see kids riding their bikes around the streets. We do see kids. It's kind of that coastal vibe. And so people do let their kids walk down to the beach or walk down to the shops. But it's pretty rare. You don't see a lot of that. It usually happens in either smaller country towns, smaller regional centres. Doesn't happen so much in the cities. Very, very unusual. And that play-based childhood is a really big difference. I mean, today it's a screen-based childhood. That's the reality. It's shifted so much. Comparing millennial parents to Gen X parents, the third thing that really stands out to both of us is the demographic shift.
Parents are generally speaking older today than they were back when we were.
You're exactly right. If we have a look at research from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, back in 1999, which is when we had our first one, average age of first-time mums was 27, which was still sort of getting up there. We know that mum's best biological years for having a child are during the 20s, right? As you get into the 30s, it gets harder and more challenging. In fact, what's the word for it? If you're over 35 and you're having a baby, they call it like a
geriatric.
A geriatric pregnancy. Which doesn't sound very nice, does it? But that's...
Well, you were born in the 1970s, just saying.
Thank you so much for... Anyway, 27 was the average age of a first-time mum back when we had our first baby. Today, it's gone up to, well, just nudging 30 years of age for first-time mums on average. That's average, not median. That's the average age of a first-time mum. And with that demographic shift and older parents, there's a couple of other things that go along with that.
I was just thinking about your university experience and the acknowledgement that as a mature age student going into university, you were just better equipped to deal with the challenges that were presented to you.
Yeah, totally.
And when you think about the experiences that we have as parents, there is the notion that with a little bit more maturity and life experience, dealing with the challenges that parenting throws your way.
Is this how you apologise to our children? I'm sorry, we had you a bit young. We started too early.
I definitely look at the experiences that we've had as parents and can see the shift as our maturity and our learning increase.
Oh, totally. Yeah, and there is some research. Again, we're talking about averages here, but there is some research that shows that older parents tend to do a better job with their parenting because they're older, they're more mature, they're better at frustration tolerance, delayed gratification. There are some disadvantages to it as well. Let's not gloss over those. But there are definitely some advantages, and that really does show up. The other demographic shifts, not only older parents, but smaller families.
Double incomes, because you need a double income to buy a house today because the economy's what it is. It's a disaster. We're not going to go into that. But comparing millennial parents to Gen X's, definitely seeing that shift to older parenting and to smaller families with double incomes, which is kind of interesting because when I look at our daughter, who is in her early to mid-20s, and her husband, they're definitely on the young side to be parents, but I tell you what, and this is the fourth thing that I wanted to highlight, the final thing that I wanted to highlight. When I compare Gen X parents to millennial parents, I just think they're doing a great job. I think they're doing a way better job than we did. Maybe it's because they're a bit older. Maybe it's because the families are a bit smaller. But I think it's more than that. I just think there's a different level of investment and a different level of engagement, involvement, care. I think the greatest legacy any parent wants to leave behind is to see their kids able to be better in every facet of life than we were able to be.
Totally.
And as I look at our daughter and her husband and see how much more engaged they are with their daughter, how much they push against the gender stereotypes and the way in which specifically Jared...
I was going to say, you're really talking about him. He's just doing a great job. You're looking at him going, Justin didn't quite get that right.
But across the board, when we got married, dads didn't really get that heavily involved. It was very unusual to have a dad that was hands-on the way these kids are today.
Yeah, I think the shift was beginning, but it's really in full swing now. We're watching it. I'm watching it at workshops that I run. When I first started running workshops 15 years ago, I reckon about 10% of the audience was dads. Today, I think it's close to 30 to 40%. Definitely mums are still in the majority, but the gap is closing and it's beautiful to watch. Millennial parents, especially millennial dads, so long as you're safe and healthy, you are kicking goals, and it's so good to watch it. And you know what I love most about this, Kylie? I watched Jared with Indy, with this beautiful little 6-month-old baby girl, and I see the delight that he has in her and in his wife, in our daughter, Chanel. And it's, oh my goodness, it's like you said, this is the dream for a parent, to see their kids grow up and nail it.
When you talked to me the other day as we were prepping for this and just acknowledged to me that they were doing it better than us, it was like you had stuck a dagger in my heart.
Oh, no.
Just that feeling of going, but I did everything I could.
Yeah. I'm not bagging out parents that have gone before.
Not at all. But as I sat there and I let that thought marinate, I'm filled with so much joy. Absolutely so much joy to see that she's taken the things that we did right and added to them, and she's learned from the things we got wrong, and she's decided that she's not going down that road. And I love that. I love that she's able to see that and do that, and that we get to have a front row seat and we don't have to wait for the snail mail to show up and to get the photos. And I don't even have to miss a day, because even if we're not here...
FaceTime calls every single day.
FaceTime calls, let me see it in real time. Yep. It's just such a delight.
Big differences, and millennial parents, I think for the most part, you are nailing it, doing so well. You know what, Gen Xers, don't feel bad. You're doing okay as well, okay? Like, you're really doing – because if your kids are doing well, that means that you've done something right, and it's great to watch. Thanks so much for listening to the Happy Families podcast. We hope that it's inspiring you to be a better parent, to be more engaged, more committed, more connected with your kids. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. For more information about making your family happier, check out happyfamilies.com.au or our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families. Oh, and by the way, if you want to leave us any feedback, please feel free to check out the brand new, easy to use button on happyfamilies.com.au. You literally just press the button and start talking, and we get your message. It's all at happyfamilies.com.au.